Did you really need to separate? We really need to be apart? Maybe not. And then they see the pictures of that time. If it's a picture of the Sea of Galilee or the picture in, in Jerusalem, and they're touched by it. And some people actually wrote me back, some priests, saying, they were so touched, from what they saw.
Amazing, amazing. We have to get onto something a little bit more topical, if that's okay now, Eli. And this is this outrageous decision by UNESCO and reclassifying the Temple Mount, the Western Walls, by their Muslim names, and really doing a shocking job in terms of destroying the Jewish historical, cultural connection to Jerusalem and to those very precious holy sites of the First and Second Temple.
Yeah, that's, for me, it's just, outrageous and silly, because if they take the Quran seriously and they're reading the Quran and they're giving the Muslims the right to the places. So first of all, in the Quran, from my knowledge, the name Jerusalem is not even mentioned once. And in the Old Testament, it's mentioned 667 times. And there's a continuity of 3,000 or 4,000 years of Jewish people living in the Old City and the Jewish quarters. That's a continuity that's been there from all history. And King David bought, it's written in the Old Testament, King David bought with money. He bought the land of the Holy Mount, and he gave it to his son Solomon, who built the first temple. This is 1,000 years BC.
Absolutely.
And since then, the second temple and all the archaeological excavations of the old city of David, who are just near you've got all the evidence there, and everything is so embedded in rock, literally embedded in rock, the history. And so it's quite amazing how naive and silly this can be. And even the connections we showed here of the early Christians and the Jewish people with the artifacts of first century synagogues in Jerusalem, in Mount Zion, that's also so much to talk about and to show. And if you go to the Titus Gate in Rome, you have a picture of that. So that is an archaeological evidence in front of your eyes of what the Romans took out of the Second Temple when they destroyed the Second Temple in 70 AD. And they took, you can see there, the Ark of the Covenant, and you can see the menorah, and all the artifacts from the temple were taken out by the Romans.
Yeah. So let's have a look at that picture lately, but let's have a look at a report that I produced on this horrendous UNESCO vote denying the connection between the Jewish people and the most sacred site in Judaism, the Western Wall and the Temple Mount. As the nation of Israel shut down and the Jewish people all over the world fasted and prayed on the holiest day in the Jewish calendar, known as Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, were preparing to vote on a resolution entitled Occupied Palestine that would reclassify the Temple Mount and the Western Wall by their Muslim names and thus deny Jewish and Christian connections to the sacred holy sites in Jerusalem. This UNESCO vote does not only deny any Jewish historical connection to the most sacred sites in Judaism, but also represents a fundamental assault on our Judeo-Christian heritage. This is the latest example of anti-Israel bias in the United Nations, where Israel's enemies are waging a diplomatic war against the Jewish state. This is a battle for the control of the Temple Mount and is at the epicenter of a battle of civilizations that we are witnessing today in our struggle against Islamic extremism. The Temple Mount is the biblical site where Abraham was preparing to sacrifice his son Isaac. King Solomon built the first temple, where the Holy of Holies contained the Ark of the Covenant, which God's presence resided in. The Temple Mount was also where Jesus overturned the money changers, and therefore is part of our biblical heritage. This UNESCO vote on Jerusalem is also undermining the international organization's credibility, as it's been hijacked by Islamic countries seeking to delegitimize and attack the only Jewish state in the world. Jerusalem, only under Israeli sovereignty, have these holy sites that are sacred to Jews, Christians and Muslims being protected. and now this UNESCO vote threatens religious freedom in this ancient city. On Thursday the 13th of October 2006, UNESCO members voted in favour of the draft resolution entitled Occupied Palestine by 24 votes to 6. Britain, the United States and Germany voted against this motion, despite the fact that other European nations like France, Greece, Spain, Sweden, Slovenia and Ukraine abstained, giving victory to several Arab nations sponsoring the motion. The text of the draft refers to the Temple Mount as the Harim al-Sharif, or the Noble Sanctuary, that includes the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and the Western Wall as the Muslim site of Al-Buqra Plaza. It is considered the third most holiest site in Islam after Mecca and Medina and Saudi Arabia. The Western Wall is the most sacred site in Judaism, as it's the retaining wall of the Second Temple. It was in the Six-Day War in June 1967 that East Jerusalem, controlled by Jordan, was liberated by Israel in that defensive war, and Jerusalem's holy sites were back in the hands of Israeli sovereignty. Israel's defense minister at the time, Moshe Dayan, gave back the control of the Temple Mount to Jordan to prevent an Islamic war against Israel. Since June 1967, Israel has provided religious access to all the holy sites in Jerusalem, despite the fact that on many occasions Jewish people are prevented from going up to the Temple Mount to pray. The Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, responded quickly to the UNESCO resolution by suspending Israel's membership to the international organisation and made this statement: "The UNESCO theatre of the absurd continues. Today, that organisation adopted another delusional decision that states that the Jewish people have no connection to the Temple Mount or the Western Wall. To say that Israel has no connection to the Temple Mount is like saying that China has no connection to the Great Wall of China, or that Egypt has no connection to the pyramids. With this absurd decision, UNESCO has lost the modicum of legitimacy it had left." Even UNESCO's Director General, Irina Bokova, was shocked by the motion by giving this statement and saying, "To deny, conceal or erase any of the Jewish, Christian or Muslim traditions undermines the integrity of the site and runs counter to the reasons that justify its inscription on the UNESCO World Heritage List. When these divisions carry over into UNESCO, an organisation dedicated to dialogue and peace, they prevent us from carrying out our mission." The Palestinian Authority and the Islamist terrorist organisation Hamas expressed delight in the resolution by welcoming it, and a spokesman for Hamas called it a step in the right direction. The UNESCO vote represents another battle over Jerusalem and the Temple Mount, as back in the summer of 2014, after Israel's war against the Islamist terrorist organisation Hamas in Gaza, after it launched rockets and missiles into Israel, Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood responded by launching a wave of knife attacks and also attempted to start a violent confrontation on the Temple Mount against Israeli security forces in an attempt to ignite an Islamic holy war against Israel. Palestinian militants launched fireworks from the Al-Aqsa Mosque and were baiting the Israeli police to storm the mosque in order to ignite Muslim public opinion around the world against Israel, with the usual false claims that Al-Aqsa Mosque is under threat. This footage shows that these Palestinian militants do not care about the so-called sacredness of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, as if they were prepared to set it on fire in order to create a conflict with Israel. The Muslim Brotherhood have also made claims to Jerusalem and have declared it as their intention to have it as the capital of the Islamic Caliphate, and they believe that if they can capture Jerusalem, then they can defeat the West. Therefore, this UNESCO vote represents a diplomatic war against Israel that ultimately threatens the very security and freedoms of the Western world. In conclusion, the European nations that abstained on the UNESCO vote should be ashamed, because they are denying their own cultural heritage and history, and empowering the Arab nations to rewrite history and undermine the important work of UNESCO for an ugly political agenda. The United Nations should be promoting religious freedom and liberty, not destroying it, and by denying the Jewish people their biblical and cultural heritage is shocking as it is shameful. The United Nations and UNESCO need urgent reform. Otherwise, these international organisations that have no moral authority or clarity will go the way of its predecessor, the League of Nations, into obscurity. The leaders of the United Nations would do well to read the Bible. especially Zechariah chapters 12, 2-4. Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of drunkenness to all the surrounding peoples, when they lay siege against Judah and Jerusalem. And it shall happen on that day, I will make Jerusalem a very heavy stone for all peoples. All who would heave it away will surely be cut in pieces, though all the nations of the earth are gathered against it. No empire, nation, or individual who has come against God's plan and destiny for Jerusalem has survived, and UNESCO would do well to heed this biblical warning. We need to make a stand against this revisionist history that denies a biblical connection between the Jewish people and Jerusalem, because if we do not confront it, then we are denying our own history and also putting our own future in jeopardy. Welcome back to the programme. I think that speaks for itself. There is a battle today being waged for the Temple Mount, and certainly any Jewish control and sovereignty of Jerusalem is being challenged by the United Nations or also by UNESCO, and this is why we have to stand up against this hideous UNESCO vote. Eli, this goes something deeper, doesn't it, than trying to strip away any Jewish identification with Jerusalem, particularly with the Western Wall, which is the remains of the outer wall of the Second Temple, and also the Temple Mount, but also represents a fundamental attack on our Judean Christian heritage as well, and to actually deny a Jewish connection or biblical connection between the Jewish people and the land of Israel is scandalous, surely.
Yeah, I mean, if you go down, and I used to go a lot into the tunnels that are under the Kotel, under the Western Wall. You can go there for hundreds and hundreds of meters all around. It goes deep, 50 meters deep, so it actually goes down in time. And when you go down there, you can see rooms and even mikveh. Mikveh is the origin of the baptism, let's say. It's the mikveh is where, you know, Jewish people, religious people go every Friday to purify themselves. So there's 3,000-year-old mikvehs near in those places if you go down there. So how can UNESCO say we don't have anything to do with this if there's 3,000-year-old Jewish mikveh with writing and everything in those caves? And you go to the city of David, and there's the big rock underneath the dome of the rock is called Even Hashtiyah, which is still there, and that is on the peak of the mount, just where the Holy of Holies used to be. It's there. It's in the mosque, and that's where, you know, it's supposed to be Abraham wanted to sacrifice Isaiah, and that's where everything happened. So I mean, it's like coming to Rome and telling the Romans the Colosseum's not yours. I mean, it's just stupid, and I don't get how they have the chutzpah to actually look at these archaeological evidence in the face.
Absolutely, but also not only does it do a disservice to Israel, but it also undermines the incredible work being carried out by UNESCO, particularly in classifying historical and cultural sites as UNESCO sites, which help with tourism. I mean, I visited a recent site of the tombs in Cyprus, for example, and going there, you know, it adds an attraction to a country, because particularly for tourists wanting to see ancient sites. Now, you know, to deny a Jewish connection with Jerusalem and the most sacred sites in Judaism is frankly madness, which is probably destroying the credibility of UNESCO as well, because no one's going to take UNESCO seriously after this.
Yeah, and also if you go into the Old Testament, the three holy holidays, Shloshet HaRegalim, where the Jewish people have to pilgrim themselves and go up to the mount. That's in the Old Testament, and they do it until today. 3 times a day, a religious Jew prays to go up to Jerusalem to these holidays, and it's embedded so deeply in thousands of years of tradition and continuous living there of Jewish people.
Yeah, and we got a picture you want to talk about now. This is a picture of Jerusalem being destroyed by the Romans in AD 70. Now this is in Rome, isn't it? This one.
Yeah,
so
this is in the Ark of Titus in Italy. I don't think it's in Rome. It's in a different city. But this is an archaeological piece of of history that everybody knows and everybody can see, and it's dated back thousands of years, and you can see the ark there, and you can see the menorah, and all the items the Roman took from the Temple Mount in 70 AD. So even not in Jerusalem, you've got archaeological evidence elsewhere.
Yeah, in Italy as well, which is incredible. But when we look at history, and we certainly look at Israel, particularly the archaeological discoveries that we've seen in Israel, Eli, that prove undeniable connection between Israel and the Jewish people. Surely that's evidence enough for not only the Bible, but also for the stories in the Bible as well.
Of course. Nearly every story in the Bible, you have the place it was. Old Testament, New Testament, goes back again thousands of years. You talk about heritage places of King Henry VIII and Shakespeare and all these things of hundreds of years. You go back to Jerusalem, this is thousands of years, written in the rock, dug out and exposed. Yeah, it's just there for everyone to see.
Can I share an experience I had in Israel 20 years ago? It was when I was with my program with the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. They took us up to the Golan Heights, and we visited the really nice wine factory there, which was amazing, which produced the Golan wines. And then we went to Gamala, and saying how the story of Gamala only became real in 1967. So the people of Gamala and the city of Gamala stood with Jerusalem against, revolted against the Romans. They were destroyed by the Romans in AD 67, and that ancient city was found in 1967 when Israel defeated the Syrians and ended up taking back control of the Golan Heights. And then they found pictures of menorahs on the stones that connected Israel with the Golan Heights, with Gamala. And surely the more time goes on, the more amazing archaeological discoveries are being made, which are then undeniably prove the existence of the Jewish people and the connection to the land of Israel.
Yeah, and that, in those times, it was from the sea until Iraq of today. So Bavel and all that area till those rivers, that was the big biblical Jewish state, and you can find evidence all over. But we're not going that far. Let's just stay in the borders that we got from the United Nations, in 48, and then 67. And just stay there, and everywhere you go, even again in the Christianity story of the New Testament and the Old Testament meeting together. So Kfar Nahum on the Kinneret, Beit Seidah, all those places where Yeshua was preaching in the Jewish synagogues are all there. And you go up to Jerusalem where he was. He went and he preached near the doors of the Temple Mount. The doors are there. The steps are there. The stones are there, telling the story from that time. So the connection of the Judaism, of course, but also the early Christianity, is again embedded in stone everywhere you look in the Holy Land, and especially in Jerusalem, and especially in the Mount.
Absolutely. So where should the Israeli government go from there? I mean, where do we go from here? Because this is not only an attack on Israel, this is not only an attack on Jerusalem, but this is an attack on our Judeo-Christian heritage in the West.
I don't know. I don't go into politics. I just think that something has to soften people's heart and just very, very gently and in compassion just show very basic evidence that are out there in all the museums in Israel and in Europe also, and in Rome. And somebody has to talk some sense into these people. But don't ask me politics.
I'll stay away from politics for you. But let's come back to your other passion, which is art. So we're down to the last 5 minutes of the program. What does it mean for you to draw these beautiful pictures of Jerusalem and imagine what it was like in maybe in the first century?
For me, I mean, if I didn't have to have a day job, I would just draw all day, more and more sites that open my heart. These are historical sites, this is, everywhere you look, it's a historical site, and touches people in different ways. And I just have a real passion to draw them as they used to be, as I said. But out of these pictures, this bigger passion is to bring this message of the togetherness, and this goes back to my lectures that I give, and I'm trying to give them as much as I can in churches around the country. I come and I bring my videos and the archaeological evidence, and I go through slowly all the history. I also show them a virtual tour of Israel today. So for people who didn't do the pilgrimage yet and they want to go there, I can show them how it looks today. But yeah, really about the origins and the togetherness, and it's a very emotional message.
Absolutely. So, you know, if you're watching and you'd like to hear one of Eli's lectures, then you can contact Eli through his website if you'd like him to come speak to your church and talk about the connection between the early church and that of Yeshua and the Jewish communities then during that time. I'll just read out, this is a testimonial. This one says, I don't know how many sermons and talks I've heard in church, but today I learnt more than most of the others. I knew what Eli had in mind to speak about and so was prepared, but I am surprised how deeply moved I am by what I've just heard. I was surprised to learn how Orthodox Jews and followers of the Way lived and talked and discussed together in the synagogues each Sabbath. Even though I knew this from Acts, Eli brought all of this alive. And that's what you've done really in today's program. I mean, you've brought the Bible alive, which is incredible.
Yeah, and maybe the last image can be this timeline that kind of summarizes everything we talked about. So you can see the timeline from left to right. So Yeshua, of course, is born, and then we have his ministry and the crucifixion and the resurrection. And then we have Paul's ministry and the first council of Jerusalem, and the temple that is destroyed and the Gospels are written. And in all that time, there's the togetherness, that symbol of the menorah and the fish together. That symbol of togetherness is for hundreds of years. And even though cracks started, like Birkat HaMinim, which was a very strong thing that the Pharisees did in order to start to separate the Nazarenes, and then the Bar Kokhba revolt that they didn't join, and then you go on, and the Nazarenes changed the holy day from Saturday to Sunday. All those cracks, but they were still living together. They were still in the same community. They were still appreciating each other. The last kind of nail in the coffin, I would call it, was the Council of Nicaea in 325. Then the real separation started, and we went into 2,000 years of bloodshed, which is very, very sad and embedded in us. But I'm focusing on that period, which is before all of that, and to show that there's hope, that we can be together, live together with the blessing of one God.
No, absolutely. Eli, I just want to thank you so much for being my guest on the Middle East Report today, and thank you for bringing the Bible alive through this archaeological evidence, and particularly I was very impressed by the Jewish names of the 12 disciples and stuff as well. So thank you, and I very much enjoyed
Shabbat
your artwork
shalom.
as well. Yeah, Shabbat Shalom to you as well. So thank you for watching today's Middle East Report. Today we see there's a fundamental battle taking place over Jerusalem and over Israel that denies a Jewish connection between the people of Israel and their land. And what these archaeological evidence shows without a shadow of a doubt is that the Jewish people have a connection to that ancient land, which is now the modern state of Israel. And to deny the Jewish people the identification with the Temple Mount on the Western Wall is a crime that's absolutely hideous. And so therefore we've got to work and proclaim truth to confront this horrendous UNESCO vote. So we'll leave you with this beautiful song to remind us all about how important Jerusalem is, because Jerusalem is not only the capital of the state of Israel, but it's also part of our Judeo-Christian heritage. So thank you for watching today's Middle East Report.
Gadol Elohai Shiuki Gadol גדול אלוהי. שם מעל כל שם, אותך ראוי להלל. ליבי ישיר כי גדול